Unexplained melting. The sinister girl who cursed 3 doctors in 1849 Alabama revealed. In the small town of Decatur, Alabama, fear threaded through the air like a noose. Whispers of witchcraft curled around every corner, turning neighbor into enemy. Yet darker shadows plagued the once vibrant streets, as chilling tales of a girl with skin that seemed to melt away haunted the townsfolk. Her name? The Melting Child. Unkempt and cursed, she was left to rot in the shadows of society and outcast. A warning, a horror story that sent shivers down the spines of everyone who dared to believe she was real. Dr. Samuel Baxter stared into the depths of his own heart as he treated the sick girl, a ghostly figure who no longer resembled the child she was. Her skin, a tragic tapestry of wounds and decay, spoke of suffering that no parent in this heartless town could bear to witness. Yet as he looked into her pleading eyes, the doctor couldn't shake off the gut-wrenching dread that settled heavy in his stomach. Was she truly cursed? Or was the evil suffocating them all something much closer to home? It began with dreams, no nightmares. The kind that twisted his spirit and left him drenched in sweat with dread twisting his insides. Each night, he found himself lost in a fog, the ghostly child reaching for him, her fingers cold and fading, as if they were specters of despair. "Help me!" they cried, echoing in his mind, until he was sure he would collapse under the weight of her anguish. Each morning he awoke with a racing heart, a cold sweat drenching his sheets. The girl's haunting face burned into his memory. As he moved through the once lively streets, even the most mundane interactions felt poisonous. The laughter that had once echoed during the harvest festival turned into ominous glances, the atmosphere thick with unspoken fears and insane suspicions. Frail, worried faces held bitter secrets. Dr. Baxter looked for hope, but all he saw were shadows lurking, gripping the townspeople in a paralyzing grasp. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation drove him to seek out his fellow doctors, but their camaraderie was frayed by suspicion and rivalry. Mysterious misfortunes seemed to target them one by one. A horse bolted and crushed a cart. A misdiagnosed illness nearly claimed the life of a child. They were being punished for something bigger, something hidden beneath layers of dirt and deceit, the legend of the melting child illuminating cracks in their fragile lives. His wife, Mary, sensed the shift in her husband. The man she knew was slowly unraveling, a shadow of paranoia eclipsing his warm demeanor. Shadows lengthened as he drifted closer to the abyss of uncertainty, each step drawing him nearer to confrontation. With nights filled with nightmares, he felt the sinister pull of the curse dragging him down with it. The day soon came when he couldn't ignore the calls of the town any longer. He'd have to confront the melting child, uncover the grim truth worming its way through Decatur's very heart. But as he neared that fateful revelation, a chilling realization clawed at his soul. Someone from the shadows of his past was lurking, and their betrayal would seal his fate. Alone and ensnared in webs of destruction, would he embrace the truth? Or would he become just another story whispered in the dark, a fleeting shadow lost to the curse of the melting child? Dr. Samuel Baxter could feel his heart pound like thunder in his chest. The sun was setting, bleeding vibrant hues of red and orange across the sky, but to him, it felt like the very world was on fire. He was deep in the woods beyond Decatur, the trees towering like ancient sentinels, blocking out what little light remained. Shadows twisted and danced, threatening to engulf him in their sinister embrace as he approached the dilapidated cabin rumored to be the hiding place of the melting child. He hesitated. Hairs prickled on the back of his neck, urging him to turn back. The cursed girl had become a myth wrapped in skin that was as fragile as her fate. What awaited him inside? He couldn't shake the thought that perhaps he had had enough of this macabre tale. Maybe he should just left things be, accept the whispers as nothing more than stories of madness and misery. But there was a part of him that felt the truth was as relentless as a fever. Clutching a lantern, he pushed the door creaking open, the rusting hinges protesting like the lost souls he feared would surround him. The air inside was stale, thick with the stench of decay and despair. Cobwebs hung like tattered curtains, glistening in the dim light as if they veiled something unspeakable just out of sight. There she was. The melting child sat hunched in the corner, her form ghastly and misshapen. Her skin dripped like wax from a candle, the remnants of what had once been a girl now grotesque and mutilated. For a moment, panic seized Dr. Baxter as their eyes met. Her gaze was dark and hollow, an echo of agony that pierced through his resolve. "Why have you come?" she rasped, her voice raw and cracked, yet laced with a haunting sweetness that made his skin crawl. "Are you here to judge me? To seal my fate?" "I want to help you," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Each word felt like an intrusion into her suffering. His heart raced, torn between the fire of compassion and the icy grip of terror. With a sudden, unleashing fury, she lifted her hand, a grotesque, withered limb that seemed to stretch and dissolve. "Help? You think you can help when others have failed?" When they whispered my name in fear rather than in prayer. An unholy chill gripped him as her words danced around his thoughts. Memories flooded his mind, faces of friends and colleagues twisted with hatred and doubt. The looks of pity, but it was her eyes, filled with despair, that cut the deepest. That despair echoed through the town like a dark symphony, resonating in the hearts of all who shunned her. "You are no different, Doctor. You don't wish to save me but cleanse your own conscience," she hissed, a wicked grin spreading across her melting lips, revealing teeth that looked like jagged tombstones. Dr. Baxter took a step back, the weight of her words crashing against him. Fear fell over him like a shroud, tightening until he felt he could scarcely breathe. "What happened to you?" he gasped, desperation bleeding through his tone. "If only I understood, understanding isn't a luxury I possess anymore," she interjected, her voice rising as shadows swirled around her. "But I can show you what true suffering is. Others may break beneath the weight, but you," her voice lowered to an eerie hush, "you will be the one to carry it. Here, in this cursed place, your fate intertwines with mine." Before he could process the meaning behind her ominous proclamation, the room shifted. Shadows snaked across the walls, twisting as they coiled tighter. A hollow laughter filled his ears, echoing like a death knell. The lantern flickered violently, the flames threatening to dance out of control. Just as he collected his thoughts and turned to flee, something cold and clammy gripped his ankle, holding him fast. The shadows swarmed him as darkness wove through the cracks. Eyes wide, his voice choked in his throat. What truth lay buried beneath the horror of this girl cursed to melt? With despair clawing at his soul, he fought against the pull, knowing that stepping into the abyss could cost him everything. And yet, somehow, the girl's laughter promised a revelation he couldn't resist. Would he dare to unearth the truth at any cost? Or would the melting child drag him into her fate, intertwining their destinies forever? The shadows closed in around him, squeezing the air from his lungs. Dr. Baxter felt the cold grip tighten around his ankle, a clammy claw that sent icy tendrils creeping up his leg. Panic surged through him, igniting a fierce instinct to flee. He yanked at his foot, but it was as if the floor had become a part of the girl, an extension of her torment. The melting child watched, her gaze now a storm of emotion, sadness mixed with a twisted glee. "Do you see?" she hissed, her voice a swirling echo. "You cannot escape the darkness. It does not run from you, but clings to you just as I have been bound since they trapped me here." Dr. Baxter's heart raced, thudding like a war drum. "I need to get out," he shouted, desperation painting his every word. He lunged forward, but the shadows, thick and unfathomable, slithered up his legs, pulling him back into the room's suffocating embrace. A whimper escaped his lips, a mixture of fear and frustration. "Why did they do this to you?" he gasped, seeking some crumb of understanding as the cabin around him morphed. The walls pulsed with life, the wood splintering to reveal faces trapped within a gallery of anguish that reflected the town's sins. They were afraid, the girl answered, her own features wavering like melting wax. Afraid of what I had become, and even more terrified of what I could do. She gestured weakly around her, and the darkness inched closer, sharp and hungry. Dr. Baxter felt their weight settle on him like a lead coat, suffocating and heavy. He began to shake, his mind racing, wrestling with fragments of folklore, inverted fears, and guilt. I'm not afraid of you, he blurted, surprising himself with his resolve, even as her laughter filled the room, cruel and triumphant. Not yet, she said softly, her voice dropping like a stone into dark water. But the truth is waiting, Doctor. You must see it or suffer with me. In a sudden rush, the shadows recoiled, and a blinding white light exploded in the corner of the room, revealing an object half buried in the floorboards. With a fierce glint, Dr. Baxter saw a dagger ornately carved, and the symbols etched into the steel unnerved him. It was marked with images of melting faces, twisting in agony, echoes of those who had once dared to approach the cursed one. What is that? He gasped, his eyes locked onto the dagger, hope battling fear. The key to everything, she replied ominously. You go to it, but beware. It will ask you questions you didn't know needed asking. Gathering the last fragments of his courage, he fell to the floor, claws of darkness loosening as he reached for the dagger. With each inch, whispers wrapped around him, soft yet heavy. Blood must be shed to break the curse. But as his fingers brushed the hilt, visions flooded his mind, faces twisted in terror. The townsfolk he knew, his friends tormented by shadows, he now understood to be born of fear. The dagger shimmered under his grip, pulsing like a heartbeat, mingling with the screams of the past, and the melting childish grin stretched wider, blurring the line between mirth and madness. Will you join me, dear doctor? She sang softly, a haunting melody, her voice weaving deeper into his thoughts. Or are you just another fool ready to run? Dr. Baxter's heart pounded. He was on the brink of something profound yet terrifying. Would he stay or risk the abyss that lay beyond? One thought echoed in his mind as he steadied the dagger, preparing to unveil the truth. If he wielded it, would he destroy the darkness or become part of it? And from the flickering shadows, her voice beckoned, drawing him deeper into a vortex of doubt and destiny. What will you choose, Samuel? There is no turning back now. He raised the dagger, its edge gleaming under the haunted light, uncertain whether he would save her or become the next victim of the curse. What awaited him was more than mere horror, it was a confrontation with his own soul. What truth lay hidden within that dagger, and what fate awaited him in its wake? The moment Dr. Baxter gripped the dagger, the ground beneath him shuddered. It felt alive, thrumming with ancient energy. Shadows twisted around him, writhing in agony as if they recognized the dagger for what it truly was, a key and a weapon, a promise and a curse. Do it, the melting child urged, her voice climbing higher, ringing with desperation. Use it to free me. With trembling hands, he lifted the dagger, the weight of its history heavy in the air. Each whispered plea from the shadows squeezed his heart tighter. Memories flooded through him, faces he had seen in faded photographs, names etched on tombstones. The townsfolk, lost and broken, pleaded for release, and yet, he hesitated. You must decide. The girl's hollow eyes bore into his, their depths swirling like storm clouds. Will you be the savior or the destroyer? What questions lay hidden in this blade? Dr. Baxter's mind spiraled with doubt. Each pulse of the dagger echoed a heartbeat of the town's pain. Would he risk the darkness? Or would he become another stitch in its suffocating fabric? Blood must be shed, the whispers taunted, a sinister choir filling his ears. Only through sacrifice can the truth be revealed. His palms began to sweat. The edges of the dagger glimmered enticingly, felt almost warm. Questions swirled in his mind, each more terrifying than the last. Would his blood be the answer? Would it end the nightmare or ignite a new one? With a roar, he plunged the dagger into the floor, the blade sinking deep into the wood. An instant silence enveloped the room, a vacuum that held its breath. The shadows halted, their creeping forms still, as if waiting for the outcome. Then came the scream. A tortured wail rose from the ground, pulsing with raw anguish. Dr. Baxter stumbled back, the dagger vibrating violently as the light from the corner intensified into a blinding flare. He shielded his eyes, heart racing, as the shadows recoiled. They twisted and turned, morphing into the faces he had seen in the woods, distorted with horror. "Stop!" he shouted, panic surging through him. But it was too late. The wood splintered around the dagger, splinters flying like shards of glass, revealing a gaping maw of darkness that opened wide beneath him. Voices cried out, merging into a cacophony of despair. The melting child stood there, her expression now a mixture of horror and resolve. "You have unleashed it," she wailed, her form flickering like a dying flame. "Now you must face what comes next." Suddenly, the eye of the storm settled on Dr. Baxter. The shadows began to swirl around him, pulling him toward the chasm that had formed. He stumbled forward, breathless, feeling their cold grip clasp tighter around him. The weight of the town's history dragged him down, a tide pulling him into the abyss. "No!" he yelled, a single thought cutting through the chaos. He had to escape this force to reclaim his own body and will. With all his might, he yanked the dagger free from the floor, stunning the cacophony into a momentary hush. "I want to be part of this." And with that declaration, the shadows shrieked, a sound that burrowed deep into his mind, echoing with every fear he ever held. Would the release he sought bring peace, or more torment? In that harrowing instant, he felt the dagger pulse again. The melting child pointed to the void, a desperate plea twisting her features. "You must confront it, Doctor. Only then can you choose your fate." Dr. Baxter's breath quickened. He seized on the time left, feeling the chill of the darkness closing in. Voices hissed from the chasm, wrapping around him a blend of calls for help and horrible laughter. What awaited him on the other side? And would it shatter him completely or redefine the meaning of his existence? The shadows surged, ready to consume him whole, as Dr. Baxter stood at the precipice of choice. Could he face what lay within? Or would the abyss swallow him before he could understand the truth? Dr. Baxter felt his entire existence tremble at the edge of that yawning void. The dagger, still warm from his grip, pulsed rhythmically with the thundering chaos swirling around him. Each heartbeat echoed like a distant drum, a siren song pulling him into the void. He hesitated, gripping the dagger tighter, knuckles turning white against the chilling atmosphere. Panic surged inside him as the shadows stretched like tendrils, inviting him into their dark embrace. Unseen voices grew louder, whispering promises and curses, blending into a low hum of despair. "They didn't want to look, don't be like them," one voice cried, shrill with regret. Dr. Baxter recoiled at the weight of their words, feeling the despair they carried seep into his bones. "What are you?" he gasped, looking toward the melting child, who stood as the sole flicker of light in this encroaching darkness. Her form twisted and warped, as if struggling to hold itself together. "What do you want from me?" She trembled as the void yawned wider. "You hold their fate in your hands and in that dagger." The urgency in her voice was cut through with fear. "But once you enter, there's no turning back." With that, she flicked her gaze toward the abyss, her hollow eyes reflecting an eternity of sorrow. Feeling the pull intensify, Dr. Baxter paused. Memories flashed before him, the townspeople, their haunted faces, each one a fragment of the town's history. He could almost hear their cries, their stolen lives echoing in the hollow spaces of his mind. This wasn't just about him anymore. A surge of determination flowed through him. If there was a chance to finally understand the darkness gripping this place, he had to take it. He planted his feet firmly on the ground, resolute. He swung the dagger above his head, the glint of its edge cutting sharply against the blinding light radiating from the void. "Then let us do this," he shouted, and in a swift motion he plunged the dagger into the chasm. An explosion of sound erupted, bone-chilling shrieks mingled with echoes of laughter. the cacophony tearing through the air like a physical force. The shadows roared. They recoiled as long-buried spirits clawed their way up from the dark depths, swirling around Dr. Baxter in a furious tempest, taunting him with their agonies. Faces twisted in relentless torment zoomed past him. There was no escaping their sorrow. Glimmers of humanity flickered in each tortured visage. For what felt like an age, Dr. Baxter was engulfed in this storm. The air thickened, suffocating him as visions of the past crashed into his mind, lives lost to despair, dreams extinguished in a whisper of dread. He staggered under the weight, gasping for breath. "No more," he shouted, his voice drowned out by the torrent. "You will not own me." And then, unexpectedly, clarity struck. The dagger was more than a key, it was his lifeline. In that moment of realization, he envisioned a beacon, a light shining through the darkness. If he could pierce the veil of despair, maybe he could sever these connections, free their souls with newfound resolve. He twisted the dagger in the air, catching the radiant glow. The shadows collided against the blinding light, fueling his determination. "I will not let you drown me." In a swift downward motion, he drove the dagger deeper into the void again. The ground trembled violently, erupting into a vortex of energy. A blinding flash enveloped him, vibrating the very essence of all he knew. As darkness tried to claim him, Dr. Baxter felt a surge of warmth, comfort amidst the chaos. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, silence stunned, Dr. Baxter opened his eyes, finding himself standing alone in an empty street. The air was still, unsettlingly peaceful. Confusion danced in his mind. Was this his world, or had he crossed into something other? Shivers crawled up his spine. The shadows loomed, waiting for his next move. What lay beyond that calm facade? Was it truly gone, or was this just another illusion? There, on the horizon, something stirred. A figure emerged from the thick mist, slowly becoming clearer with each step. Was it friend or foe? Dr. Baxter's heart raced again, dread pooling in his stomach. Who had he liberated, and what had he unleashed? The figure turned, revealing a familiar face twisted with a knowing smile. "Welcome back, Doctor. You thought you escaped the horror," and before he could react, a sinister laugh echoed through the silent streets. What new horrors awaited him here? And were the depths of dread truly behind him? Dr. Baxter's pulse quickened. The figure, a man with eyes glinting like sharp knives, stepped closer, illuminating the shadows clinging to the buildings around them. It was Jason, a fellow physician and friend, though the twisted smile carved into his features felt foreign, disconcerting. "Jason," Dr. Baxter's voice wavered, uncertainty coloring his words. "What happened to you?" The man chuckled, a dry, hollow sound that echoed ominously against the desolate street. "You think I'm your friend? You think this is still your world?" He lifted his hands, gesturing to the fog that enveloped them. "Welcome to the aftermath, Doctor. Welcome to your nightmare." Dr. Baxter's heart hammered in his chest. Memories flickered like dying embers. Late-night conversations about ambition, laughter echoing through sterile hospital halls. But those days felt like a lifetime ago. A rift had formed between them, something sinister lurking in Jason's gaze. "Where are we?" Dr. Baxter asked, his throat dry with trepidation. "Lost," Jason replied, voice dropping to a whisper, as if divulging a dreadful secret. "In the remnants of the past. You woke them, the ones you liberated." As he spoke, whispers seeped from the walls, like a sinister chorus, tormenting Dr. Baxter with fragmented cries. They danced around him, each one a pulse of anguish. He could almost make out words: betrayal, endless, remember. What have I done? The weight of the moment bore down on him, smothering, making it hard to breathe. "Oh, you were never meant to wake them," Jason spat, eyes wild, reflecting a twisted excitement. "This place is infected, Doctor. You're just another vessel, just like me." The shadows thickened, creeping closer, as Dr. Baxter felt the air grow colder. He glanced at the dagger still clenched in his hand, feeling both its heat and its weight a burden he didn't fully comprehend. "Why are you here?" he demanded, sweat beading on his forehead. "What do you want from me?" Jason stepped forward, sealing the distance. "We'll see how long you last," he hissed, flicking a finger towards the horizon. "The town is alive, Doctor. It's watchful. It remembers every scream, every tear. It knows you." Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and a sharp crack split the air. A fissure opened up in the street, revealing a swirling mass of darkness. The whispers intensified, beckoning, taunting. Dr. Baxter staggered back, nearly losing his footing on the crumbling pavement. "No, I didn't mean to disturb them." Too late. Jason's laughter echoed like thunder. "You've set them free. And now, they hunger for your soul just as much as mine." A towering shadow emerged from the crack, rising with a shape that melded into the mist, a grotesque form of agony, distorted and writhing, forcing its way closer. Eyes glinted in the dark, and a chilling wail echoed from its depths, bringing Dr. Baxter to his knees. "Help me!" he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. But Jason had already shifted away, fading into the fog, leaving Dr. Baxter alone with the darkness. A low voice dripped from the shadows, words coiling around him like tendrils. "You wish to know we have always been here, and we will not be denied. You shall join us." As the apparition lunged towards him, Dr. Baxter flung the dagger, watching in horror as it struck true but merely seemed to quench the darkness momentarily. He could feel the pull, the desire for him to surrender to the void. It was more than fear, it was resignation. "Fight, Doctor!" A faint voice rose up amid the chaos, a whisper that sounded like the melting child. "You hold their fate." But how could he fight against something that threatened to engulf him whole? Was there even a way out? In that moment, as the shadows swirled tighter around him, a figure clawed through the mist, desperate and pleading, a face he recognized all too well. The melting child. "Don't let them win, you must remember," she cried, her words piercing through the tempest. Dr. Baxter's thoughts raced. What did he need to remember? And then the ground began to vibrate, throbbing with insistent energy. Could he push back? Or was he truly lost, forever bound to this nightmare? As he faced the entity creeping toward him, a chilling thought nestled in his mind. He had unleashed something horrific, but what happened next may cost him everything. Would he dare to embrace the unknown once more? Or was he too far gone? Dr. Baxter's breathing grew shallow, panic constricting his chest as the melting child's words hung heavily in the air. What did she mean by remember? Could there be a missed clue, a buried memory waiting to surface that could save him from this encroaching darkness? The obsidian mass surged forward, a grotesque mass of sorrow and rage. It swam with countless forms, faces twisted in silent screams, claws stretched wide as if to pull him into their abyss. Dr. Baxter gripped the dagger tightly, his knuckles whitening as fear twisted into primal instinct. "I want to go," he gasped, forcing the words out. The swirling shadows paused, hesitating at his defiance. The melting child's face flickered in the void, her features twisted and melted like wax near a flame. "You have to fight," she urged. But how? Nothing about this felt like a fight he understood. This was no mere physical battle. It was a war against shadows that wore his deepest regrets, the things he tried to erase from his soul. It felt as though every failure of his career, every moment of cruelty, every lost patient had surrendered to this nightmare, taking form. Suddenly, a memory splintered through the chaos, a previous night in the hospital, a wild patient's frantic gaze, a haunting whisper that called him savior, then morphed into executioner. Dr. Baxter's heart raged as he stumbled upon that moment, a reminder of the decisions he had made, and the price they brought. A wave of nausea crashed over him. The entity thrummed with anticipation, drawing nearer, hungry. "You are one of us," it hissed with thousands of voices, twining together in a maddening symphony of despair. "I am not," Dr. Baxter roared. With a sudden burst of grit, he thrust the dagger forward toward the beast, knowing deep down it wouldn't save him. But a spark ignited within him, a fierce determination to break free just long enough to escape this malevolent grip. The shadows recoiled for a moment, and he felt the faintest flicker of hope. Perhaps he could use what he remembered. He recalled the melting childish voice, a desperate plea laced with sorrow. "What is your name?" The air shifted, and the darkness pulsed expectantly. The melting child's form swayed, her eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. Was there something in her name? Some power to harness? "Anna," she whispered through the tempest, her voice a muted echo. Always Anna, with her name reverberating in his mind. Dr. Baxter gripped the dagger tighter, channeling his fear into something palpable. "Anna," he cried out, as if invoking a powerful spell. At the sound, the darkness recoiled violently, thrashing as if struck by a bolt of energy. The wailing screams intensified, a cacophony of anguish as the horror around him faltered. The faces twisted in agony began to dissipate like smoke caught in a gust, sucked back into the crevice from whence they came. "You can't escape." It was Jason, his voice resonating through the shadows, hoarse with rage. "You think naming her will save you?" But Dr. Baxter stood firm, the weight of Anna's name reverberating through him, solidifying his resolve. The dark entity convulsed, losing form as it fought against the very thing that had given it life: his guilt, his denial. "Remember," whispered Anna. "They can't hurt you unless you remember them." With newfound strength, he remembered every pain, every scream, every memory of the ones lost through his hands. The shadows shrieked as they intensified their assault, trying to crush him again. But Dr. Baxter pushed back, eyes aflame with determination. The fissure beneath him began to widen anew, and from it came bright streaks of light. They pierced through the darkness, illuminating the shadows with raw, burning truth. "Flee, Doctor," Anna cried, her voice rising above the chaos. "It's your only chance. You must choose." Choose? What did she mean? Before he could grasp the answer, a colossal hand reached out from the darkness, groping for him, seeking to drag him back into despair. Dr. Baxter had one choice left. The dagger felt like burning coals in his grip. He could either plunge it into himself, sealing the fate of his torment with a final act of despair, or he could use its power to sever the bind that held him forever in this nightmare. He took a breath, heart racing. What if he had the strength to fight? What lay beyond this grasping void? Could he unite his memories to find his way back? Or would he be lost forever, caught in a sinister web of regrets? The cracks of light were flickering. The moment hung tenuously in the air, urging him forward. What would he do next? Would he embrace the shadows or carve his path into the light? The crushing weight of silence enveloped Dr. Baxter as he stood teetering on the precipice of despair, the dagger shimmering ominously in his grasp. The lights flickered wildly around him, casting long shadows that danced with malice. He could feel the thick, suffocating dread of the obsidian mass crawling ever closer, as if tasting the air for his surrender. "Choose." Anna's voice rang out again, desperate and filled with urgency. It sent chills coursing through him, igniting a flicker of fierce resolve. He couldn't let the shadows claim him. He would not give in to their twisted desires. But what if freeing himself meant confronting the darkest truths buried in his heart? With gritted teeth, Dr. Baxter made his decision. He lifted the dagger, sensing its weight, the promise of both salvation and potential ruin. He felt a tremor of doubt wash over him as he flicked his gaze towards the incalculable horror creeping at the edges of his vision. Each flick of movement amidst the shadows rippled like a nightmarish symphony, pinching at his willpower. "Anna," he whispered, the name heavier now, a talisman against the approaching darkness. Each breath was strained, suffused with an electric urgency. He couldn't run, not any longer. He had to confront what he had forgotten, the memories he locked away. The air thickened, thick as tar, but amidst it all, clarity pierced through. He saw her, a face painted in agony, a family-esque grief unyielding in the hospital bed. He heard the echo of a child's laughter cut short, the cries of a wife mourning her lost husband. Guilt rushed forth like a tidal wave, crashing over everything he tried to drown. "I remember," he called, voice trembling but resolute. "I remember them all." The shadows whirled as if agitated by his proclamation, distorting into horrific shapes that loomed over him menacingly. A deafening roar reverberated, drowning Anna's plea as the entity retaliated, surging with newfound ferocity. "You are bound to us," it screeched, the chorus of tortured souls merging into one thunderous voice. Claws reached and slashed at him, mere inches from his face, but he held steadfast. He felt their cold press against his skin, the bite of despair gripping him harder. But he held onto the memories to light the path when all else felt dark. "You can't take me." He swung the dagger with a surge of newfound power, the blade slicing through the approaching tendrils of darkness. Shrieks erupted as the shadows recoiled, agony ripping through them like an unseen force. Light oozed out from within him, rays battling the suffocating blackness. Each memory recalled burned brightly within him, igniting a warmth that eclipsed fear. Yet, just as hope flickered victoriously, cold dread settled in his gut. "Too light," a whisper echoed. It felt familiar, wrapped in the icy arms of Jason's voice. "Remember what you've done, Baxter. You cannot win." Panic surged in Dr. Baxter's chest, the shadows tightening around him. Memories of laughter, medical triumphs, and, scarier still, his failures. Every life he couldn't save, every decision that went wrong was now alive and clawing to escape. "Do you think they'll forgive you?" Jason's voice hissed, mingling with the tortured wails of the multitude. Dr. Baxter faltered, disoriented by the rush of darkness threatening to envelop him once more. But a silhouette emerged in the chaos, a fleeting form of Anna. Her eyes locked onto his with what felt like fierce recognition. "Face it," she shouted. "Face yourself. They won't drown you unless you let it." His grip on the dagger steadied, pulling him back, pushing the memories to surface. He wouldn't be another victim tethered in darkness. With one concentrated thrust, he aimed the dagger at the heart of the orbiting shadows. "Enough!" he screamed, triggering the very core of their fear. But would they recoil? Would this purge him of the accumulating haunt? With a wild swipe of the dagger, a blinding flash erupted, and reality shuddered. Could he sever his own ties, or was he merely unleashing a deeper terror? The question hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty and dread, as darkness loomed closer, wrapping its icy tendrils around him, squeezing tight. What horror awaited him on the other side? Would he emerge victorious, or would the abyss claim him forever? Light shattered like glass in the chaos, and Dr. Baxter felt the world tilt violently. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of agony and rage, as they recoiled from the force of the blinding flash. But as the brilliance faded, a new, gnawing sense of dread crept in. He was not free. It had only just begun. The room twisted around him, colors swirling into a distorted blur. As clarity returned, he found himself standing in an unfamiliar, dimly lit corridor, walls lined with peeling wallpaper that seemed to whisper secrets of the damned. The faint scent of decay hung in the air, mingling with his own fierce sweat. "Anna?" he called, voice thin and hollow. The silence that answered was as heavy as lead, pressing against his chest. He moved forward, every step echoing ominously, as if the walls themselves were alive, watching, waiting. Suddenly, sinister laughter erupted from behind him, sharp and condescending. "You should have known better, Baxter." It was Jason again, his voice dripping with malice. "The dagger doesn't save you. It binds you." Dr. Baxter whirled around, dagger raised. "Show yourself." A figure materialized from the shadows, a blurred specter that flickered like a faulty light bulb. Distorted features twisted into an expression of disdain. "You're trapped within your own mind," Jason taunted, a sly grin spreading across his spectral face. "All your failures, all the lives lost, they're here with you." A chill shot through Dr. Baxter as the air crackled with unseen force. The corridor shifted again, stretching endlessly into an abyss. He was ensnared in a vortex of his guilt. He could feel their presence closing in, specters of those he couldn't save, their eyes hollow with betrayal. "Look around you, Baxter," Jason sneered, and the floor beneath him rippled. Do you see them? They're waiting for you to acknowledge your part in their suffering. Then, from the shadows, he heard them faint whimpers, desperate calls. Each sound reverberated with memory. The patient he couldn't save after the car accident. The child who slipped through his fingers during surgery. Their faces, twisted in confusion and anger, emerged like malignant dreams clawing at his resolve. No, he gasped, clutching the dagger tightly. I can't carry this weight. Too late, Jason hissed, stepping closer. You made your choices. The dagger will only increase your burden. What do you think it will do now? Dr. Baxter's heart raced. He felt the shadows tightening around his throat, squeezing tighter, pushing despair into his veins. Desperation clawed at his mind. This wasn't just fear. It was guilt, raw and unfiltered. Every soul lost came crashing back, relentless waves punishing him for his past. I don't want this, he shouted, the words ripping from his throat as panic surged. The dagger began to shake in his hand, pulling at his thoughts. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, as if perceiving an opening in his doubt. They surged forward, a dark tide ready to engulf him. No, Dr. Baxter screamed, lunging forward, dagger thrusting wildly into the void. The blade met air, but a screech erupted around him. The corridor distorted violently, flickering between moments of clarity and shadow, light and darkness melding in a catastrophic blend of horror. Embrace it, Jason's voice thrashed against his ears. You can't escape your truth. In that moment, the dagger pulled him deeper, his consciousness spiraling into the abyss where you faced the unfaceable. A shocking image flashed his family, joyful and bright. And yet, something sinister lurked behind their smiles. What darkness had he hidden from them? Dr. Baxter's pulse raced, the tug-of-war inside him intensifying. Was it guilt that would hold him, or the light of redemption? A rumble echoed around him, a quake of impending doom. Which truth will you embrace, Baxter? And just then, the shadows split, revealing a door at the end of the corridor, glowing with shimmering light. Was this the escape he sought, or a further descent? He took a step, dread clawing at his gut. Was he brave enough to face what lay beyond? Would he delve into the blinding unknown, or let the shadows swallow him whole? As he stood on that precipice of choice, the air thickened, a presence looming behind him, whispering promises of salvation and more treachery. What awaited him on the other side? Dr. Samuel Baxter felt the weight of shadows thicken around him, a crushing reminder of all he had lost. The corridor of despair stretched endlessly, but the light at its end flickered with the promise of hope. It beckoned him, a soft glow against the deepening darkness that had gripped his mind. Just step forward, a familiar voice whispered, though now it was nearly lost beneath the cacophony of tormented souls. It was Anna, the melting child, her visage flickering as if she were an illusion caught between worlds. Anna, he breathed, heart racing. Is this a trap? Only you can decide, she called softly, desperation lacing her tone as shadows writhed, seeking to pull him back into the depths of his unshakable guilt. You fought so hard, don't let them win now. Clenching the dagger, he paced toward the light, his resolve tightening like a coiled spring. Guilt clawed at him. Memories swirled about his mind, faces of patience, their specters lingering just outside the periphery, each critique sharper than the last. Each whispered name echoed their unfulfilled dreams, but he knew he had to face them. The remnants of his past demanded acknowledgement. I remember you, he shouted into the void, voice trembling but unwavering. I remember every choice that brought me here. You are not my burden, I will carry you no longer. The shadows recoiled, wavering at his words, their grip loosening, echoing an unnatural cry, a collective disbelief at his defiance. From the dissipating dark, Jason's ghostly form re-emerged, his eyes aflame with malicious delight. You think facing them will save you? You are trapped, Baxter. You can't escape yourself. But Dr. Baxter met Jason's gaze with a steely resolve. I don't need to escape. I need to confront the truth. He drove the dagger into the ground, its blade piercing through to the roots of his despair. The vibration pulsed through him, igniting memories buried too deep for too long. With each heartbeat, the lamenting whispers transformed into a melodic chorus of gentle souls seeking release. "Anna," he shouted, reaching for the light as it intensified, pushing against the chains of regret that had bound him. "You deserve to be free," he promised, his voice booming, a vow etched into the air itself. With one step forward, he plunged through the threshold of luminescence, pulling strength from the very essence of the lives he had once touched. The warmth enveloped him, a stark contrast to the cold darkness he had known. As he stepped through, he felt the shackles of guilt shattering, a liberation flooding his senses. A burst of light cascaded around him, illuminating the endless corridor of shadows, seeking to extinguish the darkness in their final throes. Fearing he would not return, he paused. "I will remember you. I will speak your names." His cry rang clear, reverberating off the walls of shadowy remnants, an oath etched into the fabric of the world. With each declaration, faces emerged, swirling with newfound clarity, their whispers turning into echoes of gratitude. "You've freed us," murmured Anna, her form radiant, slowly unraveling from the clutches of despair. "Now go, Doctor. Live. Tell our story." Dr. Baxter took a final, shuddering breath and turned away from the darkness, feeling it release him as he moved toward the light, forging a new path with the weight of their memories empowering every step. With one last glance, he called out, "I will no longer be defined by your shadows," and moved into the brightness, feeling the light wash over him, lifting the burden of his past. The world outside was bright, filled with the sweet scent of blooming wildflowers and sunlight shimmering on the river. He stumbled into Decatur, feeling the warmth embrace him with a grace he had long forgotten. Breathless, he looked around, the shadows seemingly retreating as laughter echoed through the streets, the laughter of children playing, families gathering, and friends reconnecting. "This is your truth now," Anna's voice echoed softly in his heart, a balm against the wounds of his soul. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, hues of orange and pink unfurling across the sky, Dr. Baxter took a deep breath, the air filled with hope. He knew that his journey was far from over. The burden of his past would always linger, but he had liberated their whispers. He had chosen to remember. Behind him, the shadows coiled back, twisted in anger and confusion, but unable to hold him. He had fought against his demons and emerged whole. Dr. Baxter stepped forward into the light, and with every step, a promise wrapped around him, a vow to honor those he had lost, and those he would continue to serve. Each moment resonated with new purpose, a future waiting to be forged, one free of the curse. The curse of the melting child was over, yet the legacies of those stories would live on. He would tell their truths, one heart at a time. And now, hear us your moment. It's time to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that await your eyes. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every single click counts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. It matters to us. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to be part of this community of truth seekers. Let's build our story together.